Hello and welcome to Oxford University's 2021 Open Days. We are Maudlin College and this is our Meet Our Students live stream Q&A. We will go around and introduce ourselves in a minute. You can ask us questions on the live stream Q&A room in Slido. We'll get through as many as we can. Hopefully, if you could try and ask questions that our student ambassadors can answer, so things about their student experiences, student life, living in Oxford, the application process, that would be fantastic. More specific questions about admissions would be best in the admissions room. You can ask myself, my colleagues, the admissions officer, those questions. That would be fantastic. So to introduce ourselves, my name is Amy. I am the college's Outreach and Access Officer, and we've got 4 current Maudlin students with us today. So if we could go round and say, introduce ourselves, if you guys could tell us your name, your year group, your subject, and where you're from, that would be fantastic. So Erica, can we start with you?
Hi, I'm Erica. I'm a second year chemistry student at Maudlin and I'm originally from Wakefield in West Yorkshire.
Brilliant, thank you. Ellie?
Hi, my name is Ali. I'm a first year biology student at Maudlin and I'm from South Wales.
Brilliant, thank you. Jonathan?
Hi, I'm Jonathan. I'm a second year H&O modern historian and I actually live in Oxford all the time.
Brilliant, thank you. And Tamima?
Hi, I'm Tamima. I'm a first year history and politics student and I live in East London.
Brilliant, thank you. Cool, so I can see we have some questions through already, which is brilliant. So our first question is a nice one. What is unique about Maudlin compared to other colleges? So I'll come to everyone on this if you can all think of different things. Erica, what is unique about Maudlin?
I mean, the standard unique thing about Maudlin is that we have a deer park. So in like the middle of Maudlin's grounds, we have like a big grassy field with maybe, I don't know, 20 deer in it. Some of them have just given birth to new like little tiny baby deers and they're very cute. And it's really good to just like walk around it. You can't go in it with the deer, but you kind of walk around it and contemplate life or just kind of have a welfare walk and makes you feel a lot better.
Well, thank you. Ellie, what about you? What do you think is unique about Maudlin?
Yeah, I'd probably go to the deer park as well. It's certainly something that not a lot of the other colleges have. And it's something, so Addison's Walk surrounds the deer park and it's such a nice thing to be able to just go out from the library when you're having a bit of an essay crisis and just go walk around Addison's and have that sort of break. And it's so nice living in a city, but having that green space that you can just go and immerse yourself in, like during your time here. It's such a nice thing to be able to do.
Brilliant, thank you. Jonathan, what about you?
I mean, the deer park is the most obvious thing that came to mind, but I guess I would also say that Mordden's quite nice in that it's not right in the centre, which means it's actually quite nice in terms of it's quite quiet, very beautiful college, slightly set back. And then in addition, we have some pretty notable alumni, as I'm sure all colleges will claim to, but C.S. Lewis, Oscar Wilde, many other figures who went on to do incredible things. So I think that's pretty unique to Maudlin.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you. Tamima?
I think like the facilities are really good here and it's quite unique in the sense that like, so you get like the 24/7 library, which other colleges in Venice do have, but not all of them. And then you have gym access, which is also really nice. And I think accommodation, so it's guaranteed for all 3 years. And the way of picking is done really fairly. So odds are like you will have like a really, really nice room at some point in your 3 years, which is always really like nice to look forward to if you haven't got one yet, or enjoy if you do have one now.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. That actually leads us very nicely onto the next question I was going to ask, which is, what is the accommodation like? And is it in the college? So Tamima, did you want to elaborate a little bit on maybe how first year accommodation works? And then I'll come to Erica, who could maybe explain how it works from then on.
So first year accommodation isn't like, unless you have a specific room requirement, chances are you won't be inside the actual college walls, but you'll be about maybe max 5-10 minutes away. So the college owns lots of like different buildings, either on the high street or one big accommodation block where you'll probably be. And the rooms vary in like size, I guess, and like kind of room you'll get. But a lot of the rooms, about half of them will have like a sink in the room. If not, there'll be like shower and a bathroom really close by. Most of them, I think, because of coronavirus and just in general, like there is kitchen access for everyone now. So there'll be a kitchen near you that will have like the standard, like a hob and like oven most of the time, microwave, a fridge. Everyone has like a fridge in their rooms, which is also again really helpful and really useful because you don't have to bring your own like you might have to do if you were at another college. And then again, size like sort of varies. A lot of them are like decently sized. Some of them will have like 2 rooms. So the room that I'm in this year, I have a study and also a separate bedroom, but I think that's very much like the minority of rooms. But I think it is just a sort of game of luck, but all of them are like decent enough.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. And Erica, could you explain how it works in your second, third and possibly fourth year?
So after first year accommodation, there's a randomized ballot, which means kind of everyone's name is essentially put into a hat and drawn in a specific order. And that is then the order you get to choose your room for second year. So in first year, if you're near the top of the ballot, you'll get like a really nice room for second year. And maybe if you lower down the ballot, it won't be so nice, but chances are they're still probably better than the first year. Generally speaking, as you go through your degree, your accommodation gets nicer. For example, in my first year, I was in the Wainfleet, which is like the big block that Tamima was talking about. And I didn't have a sink, but it was still quite nice. We had a kitchen, we had like bathrooms right opposite me. It was all right. And then in my second year, I managed to stay in Holywell, which is actually graduate accommodation, but it was still a really nice room. And next year, I actually managed to get an ensuite. The way it works for third year is that the randomized ballot that happens for second years is like flipped. So if you're at the top of the ballot for your second year accommodation, you'll be at the bottom for your third and vice versa. And that way it's fair and everyone gets like the same kind of standard of accommodation. Fairness like averages out.
Yeah, absolutely. So the accommodation is super varied in terms of what the rooms are like as well, but they're all generally lovely, incredible views. And the nice thing is that all the rooms are the same price as well, as I think was mentioned. So any room you get, you're paying the same price as other people. Fantastic. So someone's asked, could you tell us what living off-site is like? Is there still a good community feel? And how far away from campus is it? So I assume this is referring to in your first year, you don't actually live exactly within the college walls. Jonathan, what's it like living just outside of the college walls? Do you still get that community feel?
So in my first year, I actually didn't live in the Wainfleet, which is the big block. I lived in a house just opposite college called 71 High Street. And that was great because there were 12 of us in that house. And actually, of the 11 people I was with, the majority of them are my closest friends now. I think it's really nice to be, whether you're in the Wainfleet or whether you're in another house, that's almost the best way of meeting people. And those are the people who most likely will continue to be your friends as you go through your degree. It's a really nice community feel. You'll definitely get on with, at least 3 or 4 people who you're living with. And so I think it's actually quite nice, even though you might think, I want to be next to the deer park. You're about 2 minutes away. Tamima's 5 or 10 minutes was possibly very generous. It's literally a 5-minute walk maximum. So yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you are really, really not very far away when you live outside of college walls. You can generally see the college from that accommodation. It's really not far. Brilliant. Thank you for your questions. Okay, so we've had another question. What is the food like at Maudlin? Ellie, do you want to start?
Yeah, so I'm actually a vegan. So when I came here at the start of the year, I was a bit like disappointed. Not like it's gonna come up. The story will improve, but at the start of the year, there wasn't that much options for vegetarians and vegans really, and I was a bit like, oh no. So I started cooking for myself and things, which is good because you save money, but I did email the college just asking like whether they would be willing to kind of increase their like repertoire for vegetarians and vegans. And the catering team is really, really good. Like they really want your feedback. They want to know how they're doing. They want to know if they can improve. They really they're really good at like catering for people who have special dietary requirements. So as soon as I emailed them, like straight away, they were on it. And like now I go to the hall quite frequently because they have a really good selection for vegetarians and vegans. They've even started doing vegetarian and vegan desserts and things. So that's like such a good, you know, improvement on their behalf. The food is really cheap at hall. It's like £3, you know, depending on what you have. But and they also, in the formals, it's less than £10. So usually it's a really good deal to get some food in hall, and it's convenient. But then, like you said as well, there's also the kitchens that you can cook for yourself, and it's nice to cook with your housemates and make food together, because it's a good way of, like, you know, making friends. But also going to hall is a great way of meeting new people too. Not so much now with COVID, but it's still a good place to go and, you know, socialize and things, or take a break from work and things like that. So yeah, I'd say the food experience at Morden is pretty positive.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think you touched on some really important stuff there. So at Maudlin, you'll always have access to a kitchen. So if you do want to cook, and that's something that you're interested in doing, you absolutely can throughout your degree. But also you can go to hall. So you can kind of choose to be a combination of catered and self-catered, essentially, which is really nice. Like Ellie said, if you've had a long day, you're really busy, you haven't had time to go to the shops, or you just haven't seen anyone that day and you want to head to hall, get yourself a very subsidised meal, you know, good 3 courses, fill you up. And yeah, like Ellie said, they're super receptive to being emailed and told about requirements or anything like that. So yeah, brilliant. Okay, so we've had a question: which college is best for social or human sciences? So Erica, would you mind giving this question a go?
So I don't do a social or a human science, but generally speaking, with most undergraduate courses, or possibly even all, the majority of your teaching is centralised departmentally, meaning you'll get the same standard of teaching no matter which college you go to. The difference might be coming with subjects that have a bit more choice. I think I know I've got a historian friend who chose Maudlin because one of the tutors at Maudlin had her specific like specialty, but you can still go and access those tutors whilst at another college. So the standard of teaching you get actually doesn't change depending on what college you choose. The college you choose is more about the social side in terms of like accommodation, like where you'll be living, the types of people you'll be meeting, who maybe you'll have your tutorials with. Like for me, a lot of my teaching comes from lectures and labs and things like that, which is all departmental. And so the majority of your teaching won't change no matter which college you apply to.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Erica. I was throwing that at you, hoping you'd give that answer. Yeah, so that I think leads on to a good sort of follow-up question of when the way to choose your college, like Erica said, college is very much about where you live. It's not so much about your academic experience, which, as Erica said, is organised by your faculty. So generally speaking, your academic experience will be the same whichever college you go to. So how do you guys choose a college then? Why did you choose Maudlin? Jonathan, I'll start with you.
So to be completely honest, I think most people choose colleges for pretty silly reasons, in the sense of they're not as substantive as you might think. So I remember on my open day, which is 3 years ago now, I came down to the city centre, and I basically only chose Maudlin because it was the first college where I walked into, and it was really quiet, and it felt like, oh, this is different. This is quiet. It felt more like a home. And also the guy who taught me around was just quite nice. They showed me some really cool rooms, and I was like, yeah, I could live here. I didn't even see the deer park the first time I went around. I didn't even notice it. I think people worry a lot about their college, but the main thing to remember is that it's just going to be your home for the next few years. So just look at whichever college you think, oh, this feels homely. That's the one which might be good to apply to. Although I should probably add that a lot of people get pulled to a different college. So the college you apply to may not be the one which you end up at. But I think students at basically every college enjoy their college experience. Every student says their college is the best college. We can't all be correct, but I think Maudlin's the best. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you touched on pooling. Erica, you, I believe, did not apply to Maudlin, did you?
Correct, yeah. So I applied to Worcester because Worcester was my link college, which meant that I'd visited that previously. I'd never visited Maudlin. And if I'm honest, the reason I applied there was because one night I went to Hall and got a meal and it was really tasty. And I'm sure they just like made the food especially nice for us. But do you know what? The food was good. And then I thought, do you know what? If the food's good, I'll apply there. But I applied to Worcester, but I guess that year Worcester was quite oversubscribed for chemistry, whereas Maudlin maybe didn't have so many applicants. So prior to interviews, I was pulled to Maudlin, which means that kind of my application was moved from Worcester to Maudlin. When I was accepted to interview, the email I got said, "You've been accepted to co-interview at Maudlin." And at that point, I'd never looked around Maudlin, I'd never seen Maudlin, but I thought, you know what, an interview is like a good thing. And at interview, I got the chance to look around Maudlin, and now I wouldn't change it for the world. I think even if you do get pulled, like Jonathan said, like no matter what college you end up at, it'll be your favourite. I love Maudlin with all my heart, and I would never have wanted to end up at Worcester anymore.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, so as Erica said, this pooling system is yet another reason not to get too bogged down in college choice based on subject or admissions. Pooling basically means that the best applicants in any given cohort of any given year will get a place at the university no matter what college they apply to. But we both just basically share around our applicants sometimes. So you might get an interview at a different college, or you might even get an offer from a completely different college altogether. So you can't really tell. About a third of people don't end up at the college they apply to. But as Jonathan said, you always think that the college you end up is the best college. Tamima or Ellie, did either of you have any other reasons for picking Maudlin?
I think for me, part of it was like, I remember one of the questions I asked when I came for an open day was how many other historians are there, or like how many historians in particular. So the course I do, there's like 45 people doing it across the year in the university, which means, and there's only like 30-ish colleges. So that means there are some colleges where like there's only one HISPOL person a year. And I didn't really want that. Like I didn't want to be the only person doing my course in the college. I just wanted like at least like a couple of other people there. So the history cohort at Maudlin, that includes like history and other things, is I think one of the biggest probably in the university. Like in all the colleges, there's like 20 of us in my year. So like a sixth of the year does history of some sort, which I thought was really nice. And it's really nice because you can like share notes with people and you can ask people about their courses and you can ask older years how they found things. And it's a lot nicer in the sense that you do get that community feel around your subject.
Yeah, brilliant. Ellie, any other reasons, or is it mainly because of this?
Yeah, I mean, like Jonathan said, it was a matter of on the open day. It was a really beautiful sunny day. I came to Maudlin first. It was absolutely beautiful college. I saw the Deer Park and I sort of just immediately fell in love with it. And I went and saw some other colleges, but I think I was just completely like, Maudlin is the college I want to be at. And, you know, you'll go to colleges and you'll think that this one is the one for you, but they're all really brilliant colleges anyway. So no matter where you end up, I'm sure you're gonna have a great time. So I wouldn't worry too much about which college you go to.
Yeah, absolutely. College choice is really personal decision. As Jonathan said, sometimes people's reasons for choosing college is really silly. Lots of people have picked Maudlin because if you Google it, it comes up as one of the prettiest Oxford colleges. But you know, if that is, if you want to live somewhere beautiful for 3-4 years of your life, that's completely legitimate. Maybe you want to look at how close you are to your faculty. Maudlin is 2 minutes from where lots of humanities lectures are. So if you want to roll out of bed at 2 minutes to 12 to get to your lectures, that's maybe something for you. Maybe you want to be further out, maybe you want a big community of students, maybe you want a bit smaller. Maybe you want to look at the facilities that are available. You might also want to look at how accommodation works. So we do offer accommodation for all years of your undergraduate degree. That won't be the same for all colleges. Lots of colleges do it, but not all of them. You might also just want to look at the financial support that your college can offer you, because as well as university financial support, colleges also offer some additional financial support. So they're just some things you might want to look at. But yeah, it's super personal. Yeah, Jonathan.
I think also not every college offers every course. So make sure to look at that before you apply.
Yeah, that is an excellent point. Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, some courses, so for instance, we don't offer geography and things like that. So just make sure you're checking things like this. Okay, so we've had a question. What is Freshers like, and is there alcohol provided? So I'm going to ask one of our second years, because you had a Freshers in non-COVID times. And then I will also ask one of our first years who had a COVID Freshers. So Erica, what was a non-COVID Freshers like?
So my Freshers was quite fun. It was quite a long time ago now, or at least it feels like it. I remember for the first week there was kind of activities planned every single night, and every night there was also maybe 2 or 3 different activities you could choose from. For example, I remember that like 2 or 3 of the nights there was a big like club night planned where people kind of like got pre-drank in college and then went to a club. But for one of those nights, I wasn't really feeling like drinking, so I went to like the non-drinking one, which I think was a movie night at that time. And I think we watched Rocky Horror Show, if I remember correctly. And the same thing kind of happened every night. There was kind of 2 or 3 events. And when I say it was drinking and non-drinking, I don't mean like it was not segregated, but there was kind of like the big club night and then maybe like a quiz or a movie night or like some slightly more chill events. And kind of which events you go to depends on the kind of person you are, what you enjoy, the type of people you're looking to meet, and also just like how tired you are. Because like for the first few nights, I kind of went a bit wild and partied a lot. And then like after that, you're kind of done. Like there's only so much you can do. And I was tired and I kind of just chilled for the rest of the time. But like one of my closest friends that I also met in Freshers Week does not drink at all, and so I went with her to a couple of the non-drinking events because she also doesn't like to go to clubs or be around people who are drinking, and she enjoyed Freshers Week just as much as anyone else. Generally, it's just a good way to meet people, and there's lots of events on to socialise. There was also a bop, and a bop is kind of, the way I describe it to people is like a year 6 disco but with adults. And for people who don't know maybe what a year 6 disco is, it's kind of just like a cheesy dance along. There'll be some like nostalgic music, maybe from like the 2010s or something, and we'll all just dance and sing, and like there'll be some like disco lights or whatever. And there is a bar and there's alcohol that you can buy. It's not provided, to answer the question. It's kind of just, you have to buy your own essentially. College have a policy that we can't like spend college money on alcohol because it's alcohol and students would abuse that power.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Jonathan, anything to add from a non-COVID fresher point of view?
Yeah, Freshers Week was really fun. I'm also a non-drinker, but I massively enjoyed the week. College does not provide alcohol, but they did pay for a lot of pizza and a lot of mixers. So those are all provided. Bops are, hopefully they will return in October. Great events. If you like a dance, if you like to just shout along to those songs, which no one actually knows the words to, but you kind of know the tune, they're great experiences. It is a tiring week. I think we actually had 2 bops, I think the first night and on the Saturday. And by the end of the week, you are quite tired, but everyone's tired, so you'll be all right. But yeah, it's a really fun week. You get to meet a lot of people, a lot of names. You'll remember about 5 of them, but that's not important.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Ellie, how was Freshers Week for you?
So obviously we had freshers during COVID times, so it was a very different experience to what I think we were all expecting. However, I still really enjoyed Freshers Week. The college did really well with the kind of in the situation that they were in at organising events. We had a really good Ents team, so we got, if I can remember right, we had a movie night, a comedy night. You know, they organised things for us in the circumstances. But we still had a really good time. I remember being like exhausted after the first week for just like going out every day. Probably should have like chilled out a bit more, but it was a really nice time, and it was just a great time to meet other people. And I think like in this specific context of COVID, everyone is in the same boat. So like everyone, you know, is a bit nervous about how we're going to make friends and like how like things are going to pan out over this time, because you can't go out and meet other people. So everyone was just super friendly. And also like, because the amount of people that could meet up was like kind of limited, it meant that like you were in smaller groups, so you had more time to socialize with people. So it just made everyone so much closer, because you know it's harder to socialize with other people, so you were just like restrained to this small group, which, you know, kind of helped us to get along really well. And I think our years has gone really, really well. So and freshers, you know, really helped that to like meet people and get out there. So it was a positive experience. Bit weird, but positive.
Yeah, brilliant. Anything to add, Tamima?
I think mainly like Ellie's made a very good point that you still could meet people. It wasn't, I mean, when we got here, I think the like COVID restrictions weren't as strict as then they later became during term. So there were still opportunities to like go and sit in a bar with like maybe like 5 people you just met and like get to know them or whatever. And also like just bumping into people from different colleges on the street who like, were also freshers and saying hello and like introducing yourself and then like going back home. So I think it, like, all things considered, it really wasn't as bad as like maybe like I originally thought it could have been when I like heard that, you know, like things were still gonna like be quite restricted when we got there. And I think hopefully things should be a lot better by next October, or like this coming October. So hopefully any like, or like even prospective students who are coming the year after that, hopefully things will be like back to normal-ish.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. Cool. Okay, so we've had a question about what resources does Morden have for international students. So when you arrive as an international student, we have an international students rep who's an older student who is someone you can go to with any concerns or issues, and who will have lots of information that you might need. We also have a college parent system, which basically means that if you get a place here, you'll be assigned a second year set of parents who usually are one of whom will do your subject, and they're sort of supposed to be your first port of call. They'll reach out to you, you can talk to them about things you want to know about, etc. And usually if you're an international student, we'll try and give you a college parent who was also an international student to again be able to answer some of the more specific questions to that experience. You can also apply for what's called VAC Res, which is basically a vacation residence. So you can apply to stay in the college during the breaks if you would like to, and there's some money available from the college to help cover that cost as well, so if you don't want to travel home. And beyond that, there's, I mean, lots of the general support systems available with lots of people with information. I don't know if any of the students have anything to add to that, anything they know is available from being friends with international students. Yeah.
The only thing I'd say that has been missed is that a lot of international students have storage granted to them by Maudlin over the vacation. So a lot of them do choose to still go home because obviously they want to see their families, and non-COVID times, if you could afford the flights, it was quite possible to fly home, spend a few weeks at home and fly back again. We had like 5 weeks between terms, so it's fairly feasible. And a lot of international students choose to put most of their belongings into storage so they don't have to fly to and from every like vacation. And as far as I'm aware, Maudlin doesn't charge any extra to international students to store their stuff.
Yeah, brilliant, great, thank you. Okay, I can see lots of questions coming through, so we'll try and get through them a little bit more quickly. I'll ask only 1 or 2 students as we go. Okay, so a broad question, but what is equality like in Maudlin? Tamima, do you have any thoughts on equality in Maudlin?
I think in terms of like, so there's 2 like prongs, I guess, to this, in terms of like class, I guess, and also like race. I'd say just starting off with like race equality, like BAME representation, there is, I think, at least in my year, I can't really speak too much for other years, but in my year there's like a really lovely BAME community. So like during Ramadan we had like dinners together, we broke our fast together, like it's always really nice, and you can speak to other students if there's anything concerning you. And we also have like the best RAIM reps right now, like they're really like on it, they have like the best resources, they do like RAIM film nights where like you'll watch like a Bollywood movie or whatever, and you just like sit and like Netflix party it. I think also like the college is trying to do a lot more also like top down, so not just within students. So there's going to be a lot more like cultural events that college are going to help fund. The college president right now, Dinah Rose, like sat and did an iftar with some of the Muslim students over Ramadan. So I think that definitely is like a really nice welcoming community. And if there are any concerns, there are lots of avenues that you can go to. So the RAIM reps would be, I think, one of your first ports of call. One of them is also peer support training, which is again really helpful. And I think the college take things really seriously when they do crop up. And just as like it's really loud on High Street, but like these things are like relatively rare at Maudlin, at least from my experience. In the year that I've been here, there have been very few instances of like, say, racism, and when they have cropped up, they've been dealt with, from what I've heard, again, quite well. Like the college has responded really well to it. In terms of like class, I think, again, lots of steps are being taken to make Moorland as welcoming community as possible. So we have like a brand new, I think, class and sort of social equality rep who's going to be holding like loads of welfare teas when their role like sort of kicks off next year. And again, I've never felt really out of place despite coming from a very low income background. And I think part of that is because there's lots of financial support available to you, both from the university and from the college. So I've never felt worried about like not being able to afford to do things, if that makes sense. So not being able to like afford to go out to like dinner with someone or afford to like go out for drinks, because there is like a really good safety net, and the college do understand that like actually like being able to participate fully in college life when you are from a low income background is not just about like, you know, can I afford groceries, can I afford rent? It's also about, can I afford to like do social things with other people, or do I have to sit in my room? And I think in that sense, it's just a really nice place to be, because people are just so caring and lovely and understanding and generous.
Brilliant, thank you. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to add? Yeah, go for it.
Just in terms of like the LGBTQ plus community, there's still quite like Tamima said, with the BAME community, we're like, it's a really nice community feel. We meet every Tuesday, even through like COVID, we still met like virtually every Tuesday, and those kind of events are open and welcome to everyone, no matter like how you identify. And we kind of run lots of games nights, and there's also a scheme called the Rainbow Parents, where you can kind of, when you start at Maudlin or any other college, you can get Rainbow Parents who are second years or third years, who also identify as LGBTQ plus, and can kind of help you through the transition into university in that respect as well.
Yeah, brilliant, cool. I mean, I think you guys really covered it really well. We also have a multi-faith room that's just been installed, again, which is something that was brought to the college's attention, that there needed to be space, which has now been put in. And yeah, I think Erica rightly touched on the welfare support that's in place, so you can access peer supporters who are specifically sort of, you know, if you want to speak to someone who identifies in the way that you do, or someone of colour, for example, you can access that through the university support system as well. And we have representatives of the student body who take issues to college if you want to sort of make some change happen. And yeah, Tamima mentioned RAIM reps, which are racial and ethnic minority. That's what the RAEM is. So yeah, there's lots going on. And on an admissions point of view, our statistics are openly available, and stuff we're really working on to make sure we are always really, really committed to admitting anybody, regardless of their background. Brilliant, thank you for your question. So how did you find your interviews and the application process? So Ellie, how did you find your interview?
So I had 2 interviews at Maudlin and one at Christchurch. I think it's pretty standard for you to get an interview at one college and then at another college that you didn't apply to. But before like going into the interview, it was like so nerve-wracking because I'd never done anything like that before. Like it's not something a lot of people have done, like an interview, but on that kind of like academic level where they're just asking you questions and things, and you can prepare as much as you want, but you still, when you get there, it's still, it's very up in the air about what they're going to ask you. So there's not a lot of preparation. It's more, learning techniques and things. But I'd prepared as much as I could. I came here, and as soon as I got here, all like my kind of anxiety just kind of went, because everyone was so friendly here because I stayed overnight. You got to meet everyone here. It was just a really nice experience, and everyone was in the same position as you. They were all doing the same thing, and everyone was just so supportive and so nice about it. The interviews themselves were really well organized, I found. I think some people said that it could be a bit hectic with like quick changes in times of interviews, but mine were well timed and like everything was fine. And going to the interview itself was it put me at ease for the other two, my first interview, because I thought it would be like kind of interrogating, they're going to ask you questions and judge you, but it was just so like calm. It was just talking about something that you enjoy and that you're passionate about. And that's what you've got to remember, is they're not trying to like trick you out. They're not trying to get you. They're not trying to, get you to answer incorrectly. They're just here to see you speak about something you really enjoy and have a discussion with you about the subject that you want to do for the next few years. So if you kind of just remember that, and just remember, like, they're not trying to get you out. It's just about having a discussion. And at the end of that, if things go well, things go well, but it's not something to get really worked up about. And, I did. And then when I got there, I realized really quickly that everything was going to be okay. It wasn't as dreadful as I thought it was. And so, yeah, I had a pretty good experience with the interviews.
Brilliant, thank you. Jonathan, what about you? How was your application process and interview?
So as a history student, I had to take the history aptitude test, the HAT, which I actually personally, I found that quite difficult, but that's a source-based test. It's just an hour, and I thought I had done very well on it, but I still got invited to interview. I had two interviews, so I did ancient and modern history. So I had one with ancient historian tutors, classics tutors, and one with history tutors. I came out of my first one and I thought that I was the real deal. I was like, of course they're going to accept me. I was so good. And the second one brought me back down to earth a little bit more. But I think something to remember is that interviews are actually just a discussion. They're just a chat about the subject which you're doing. The best way to prepare for them is just to talk with other people about whether it be history or English or chemistry, whatever you're doing. Just a discussion, even if you're talking at your parents. If you enjoy your interview, which I think actually lots of people end up doing, they come out of the interview and say, oh, that was actually quite interesting. That's quite a good sign, because interviews try and replicate the tutorials which you'll be doing. But the final thing I'd say is, don't think, oh, that interview went badly, that interview went well, because I thought my second interview went terribly. And speaking to my tutors now, they said, oh no, it went well. So don't try and second guess how it went. When you've done it, you've done it. And try and enjoy your Christmas, enjoy your holiday. And you can think about all of that again later in January.
Yeah, brilliant. So Jonathan touched on something really important, is that what interviews are trying to do is interview is sort of a misleading title for them. They're really academic conversations. You're not sort of being asked sort of job type questions or why you would be good for this role. You're chatting about your subject, because the way we teach at Oxford is primarily through this tutorial system. And I can see that someone has asked in another question, how does the tutorial system work? So to me, sort of from a humanities point of view, what are tutorials like for you?
So what tends to happen is you'll have picked your paper options. if depending on like your course, you may not have sort of options. You'll have like papers that you sort of have to do. So for me, I had a paper that I had to do this year, which was Introduction to the Practice of Politics. And that was fine. And what happens is you get sent, for humanities at least, you get sent a reading list about a week in advance. And then you'll have roughly a week, sometimes a bit less than that, sometimes maybe like 4 or 5 days-ish, 5 days, to write your essay based off the reading list. So you'll read maybe 5 things-ish off the reading list, sometimes less, sometimes more, depending on like the week, depending on what's on the reading list, how long things are, and how much you need to do. And then you'll write your essay based on that. And then you'll send it to your tutors maybe a day in advance, and they'll have time to read over it, mark it, make any comments. And then you'll come to your tute. You might have a tute partner, it might be one-on-one. And essentially you'll sort of discuss the essay, discuss the reading that you did, the arguments that you made, the questions, any questions you have, any clarifying points. I think sometimes the best tutes are the ones where you think you've written a rubbish essay because you walk out of it having understood the topic a lot better than you did when you walked in. I think for the most part, they're just quite interesting chats about a topic that you found interesting, or hopefully found interesting because you've written something on. And it's really good to sort of have a bit of a debate about, you know, why you answered the question in a certain way and whether it was right to do it, or not right, but whether it was maybe the best take you could have. Is there any way to make it better? And ultimately, they're just quite fun and quite interesting. You have like lots of different opinions formed after you come out of it.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And Erica, quickly, from a sort of science point of view, what's a tutorial like for you?
So for me, instead of getting like a reading list in advance or like a essay, what I would get is what we call a problem sheet. So it kind of say we're doing this topic this week, and then it give me some kind of textbooks and other like lecture notes and sources to look at, and then say answer this like big sheet of questions. And I would spend a lot of time on that and like read through them and answer all the questions I can. And then in the tutorial, generally speaking, you don't have time to go over every single question, but you can kind of say, I really struggled for 8C, and they'll go over it. Sometimes if it's more of a descriptive kind of topic, we will go over the concepts in depth and the tutors will talk us through it. And we have time to ask any questions to like help us get a deeper understanding. Generally speaking, tutorials for me are about understanding a topic and really getting to grips with like the basic of that, and how to then answer the questions.
Brilliant, thank you, that's excellent. Okay, so we've got a few questions. The question about tutorials, you also asked about what it's like to study medicine at Morden. We don't have a medic with us right now, but if you want some questions more about sort of the details of studying a science course and sort of people in the medical sciences, then all of our ambassadors and more are on our Ask a Student Slido page, so that would be a good place to go and ask about that. So we've had a question, what are the different societies at Maudlin like? And maybe more broadly, what other societies do any of you guys do? Is anyone in any of the Maudlin specific societies? Yeah, Ellie?
Yeah, so I'm in the Maudlin Film Society, which has been really nice. So it's Peter Kasler, Dinah Rose is the president's husband, has been really good at organising film nights every week online. So you join on Zoom and they'll screen a film every night, every week, once a week. And this kind of term we've been doing classic British films. The term before we did black and white films. It's just a complete range, and usually we'd have screenings in the auditorium, and I think we're planning on getting back into that next Michaelmas, so next year, first term. But it's just a really nice way of kind of chilling out after kind of a long week, and chilling out with friends rather than just kind of sitting in your room watching a film on your own. So it's nice to kind of do something with other people. And it's just been a really nice opportunity to do that. And there's it's open to people who aren't Maudlin as well. So you can meet people from other colleges too. And it's just been a really enjoyable experience doing that.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I think the Film Society sometimes do big outdoor screening in the centre of college. So a few years ago, they screened Moonlight, and I think they did Pulp Fiction recently, if I remembered that correctly. Anyway, there's usually outdoor screening of these films as well, which is a really fun experience in the summer terms. Cool. Are any of the rest of you involved? So Maudlin specifically, there are a few societies like the Film Society. There's also a Poetry Society. There's drama. There are a few others. There's lots of music and choirs that you can be involved in as well. And then there are loads and loads of societies that are sort of happen at the university level, and I mean loads, like something for everybody. So Jonathan, you put your hand up. What are you involved in?
So I kind of preemptively put my hand up. I don't do many of the Morden specific ones, but I do take part in the Christian Union, which has one every other week. There's a university-wide meeting, and then so in what we call odd weeks of term, week 1, 3, 5, and then in even weeks, there's the Maudlin Christian Union meets, which is a smaller group, and we just meet and discuss. It's a very supportive environment. There's also, I take part in football, both for the university and for college, and college does a lot of sport. It takes part in competitions against other colleges. There's a league in most cases, and also a cup competition for most sports. And that, I would say, that is actually how I met a lot of my friends, especially in other year groups. It's a great way of meeting people. It has a great atmosphere. Morden has such a good camaraderie bond, especially through the sports. So I think that's a really encouraging and fun way of getting involved in stuff in Morden.
Yeah, brilliant. Anyone else got any other societies they're part of? Yeah, Erica?
In terms of just like a weird one, in my first year, less so this year with COVID, but got quite involved in the Oxford Pole Dancing Society. It was something I'd never tried before, and I saw it at the Freshers' Fair, and I thought, you know what, why not? And I am truly terrible at it, but it's good fun. And that's the thing, like, no one cares if you're bad at it, because there's so many people that are involved in these societies that there are people who are amazing, and there are people who are just starting out and are learning. And the same goes with any sport, and also like any society ever. Like there's so many societies you could. The weirdest ones that you can think of probably exist, including like the Assassin Society that just go around shooting people with Nerf guns. People who have agreed to be shot with Nerf guns, not just random members of the public. But it just shows there's really, honestly, a society for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. The one that always springs to mind for me is Octopush, which is like underwater hockey, which you can go and play, which is like just insane. So yeah, there's and people also, I think, play Quidditch, like Harry Potter Quidditch, which always baffles me. But yeah, there's, like I said, if you want to try new things, it's definitely out there. So we're getting lots of questions about social life. What's the social life like at Maudlin? Also, what social activities are popular? Jonathan, what is the social life like at Maudlin?
I'm flattered that you came to me for a social life question. It's really good. Social activities, I think, are always good when they're organised, but the best thing about them is the people. And Morden has a great community of people. The years are very interlinked. It's totally fine for a first year to be speaking to a fourth year, or a third year to be speaking to a second year. And that means that college has a great community feel. There are lots of organised events. So as I mentioned, there are lots of sports are happening all the time. There's a music society, Morden College Music Society. And then there are things organised by the Junior Common Room, so the JCR, and those are specific social events. So BOPs are organised by the JCR. Movie nights, a lot of the times, maybe organised by the JCR. Karaoke in the college bar. I'm not sure it's happened this year because of COVID, but returning in October are, I think, Tuesday night karaoke nights, which are a great chance for you to, all that singing you do in the shower, to perform it in front of college. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff which goes on. So college social life is really good. both for drinkers, for non-drinkers, singers, non-singers, sportsmen, non-sportsmen. It's all out there.
Fantastic, thank you. Tamima, did you have anything to add on social life, popular social activities?
I mean, like, I think a lot of it, especially this year, has just been like hanging out in like groups with your friends, and like what you sort of do in those groups can vary. So a lot of my friends like drink, but I don't drink at all, and I've never felt pressured to drink. Like, I've always found myself enjoying myself despite being completely sober. And I think also I'm one of the JCR ENTS reps this year, so I put on a lot of the things, and we try and cater as much for everyone as possible. So even in the events that we do, say we couldn't do a regular bop, but we tried to do essentially like build your own bop at home. So we like bought loads of pizza for everyone's households and bought loads of mixer. And in like when we were doing that, we were thinking, okay, so what are the options? People who don't drink, like, can they have these mixers alone? Like, people who do drink can like go and buy their own alcohol. So I think we do try and make sure there is something for everyone when we do these social events. Just to sort of bear that in mind. Like, I think even if you think that there might be quite a big drinking culture when you come to university, you can very much avoid that if you want to. Like, there's no pressure at all.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. So we've had a question: how easy have you found maintaining a healthy work or social life balance? Ellie, how have you found maintaining that balance?
I think it's something that's like kind of still in the works. Like, you kind of have to like always keep making sure you're balancing all the time, because like in Michaelmas, I think like there was slightly too much socializing, not enough work, not enough other things going on, and then, you know, kind of Hillary, there was too much work. Now I might have the right balance, not sure, but like it's a constant flux of like you always trying to balance sleep, get sleep, self-care, work, socializing. It's like a very fine balance, and you know, you're going to be off sometimes. Sometimes you're going to have to pull an all-nighter in the library, and you know, you're going to have to deal with the consequences later. Sometimes, you know, things happen, but like generally on the whole, if you're organized and you know, you make sure you're having a nice time, but make sure you're organized and keep up work throughout the terms, you'll generally be fine. Like, it is a big step up coming here and having a lot more work to do than at school, but and like courses vary. I mean, like biology, there's quite a lot of work to do, but I know there's some other subjects where it's insane work. But like, as long as you have a schedule that works for you and you like kind of stick to it, I think like you'll be fine. Just, you know, keep on top of things, but like you'll have time to do other things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're not expected to arrive and immediately know how to do that balance. That's part of what going to university is about, is sort of learning, and sometimes learning the hard way, how to get that balance right. Yeah, it takes everyone a little bit of time to figure out their rhythm, when they work best in the day, when they want to have time off. So yeah, it'll be, you'll have a period of adjustment, but everyone manages it. And yeah, clearly lots of these people are doing other things other than their work. Yeah, Tamima, did you want to add to that?
I think just sort of on that like period of like finding out what works best for you, like your tutors are generally like very, very understanding about that. Like, you know, as Ellie was saying, like sometimes things happen, like you don't get your work done on time, you don't get as much done in like the period that you set out to do it in. And tutors are just really understanding about like, you know, teething problems when you first start a course. Maybe like all my tutors, I've never had a tutor like get mad at me for asking for an extension ever. They tend to just be like, they're humans too, they understand that things happen, like just things don't always go to plan.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, if you would like to meet said tutors, we have a live stream with them at 2, and you can meet some of them, ask them your questions, and yeah, you will see for yourself that they're super understanding of these things. So we've got quite a few questions about who are Maudlin alumni. I mean, there are loads of them, and you can look up the full list. Oscar Wilde, Louis Theroux, throwing some names, guys. C.S. Lewis. Who are your favourite alumni people? Ian Hislop, if you ever watch Have I Got News for You? He was here. There are absolutely loads, old and new. yeah, so do go away and have a little
I
explore.
think King Edward VIII went to Moorland.
Yes, going back a little bit further way. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of Maudlin alumni, and lots of people come and visit the college and do talks and things. George Osborne, I think, a few others as well. Okay, so we've had a question. Is there support for disabled students? Erica, can I ask you to cover some of the sort of support available for students with disabilities?
Yeah, that's fine. So I myself do have a disability, and I have found Maudlin to be very welcoming. Before I even arrived, I disclosed to Maudlin that I had a disability and I had mobility issues, and in my first year they made sure to put me in a ground floor room right next to a bathroom, which is what I asked for. I know people who also got a fully adapted room for wheelchairs and or more severe mobility impairments in their first year. But that's not what I needed. College were generally very good at listening to me about what I needed and providing that for me. They have granted me with some funds to get specialist equipment, such as like a special chair and a mattress and some like supports for writing. In terms of like welfare support, and general wider support, I think a lot of it comes from the Disability Advisory Service, which is university wide, which is just incredible. You get like a one-to-one support tutor. I'm not quite sure what they call them. Mine's called Deborah. She's lovely. She's incredible. She will like Zoom me at a minute's notice if she can. And they're there to rant to go to. They'll fight on your behalf if some colleges aren't quite as welcoming as Maudlin, and they will fight on your behalf to your college. And honestly, there's always going to be room for improvement. And I know people who've maybe not had the most positive experience at Maudlin, but from what I've gathered, Maudlin are very, very keen on improving and listening to their students. And like Ellie said with the dietary requirements, they really want to get feedback. And if you're not feeling supported, they will try their best to change and like make sure that they're supporting you the way they can.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. I think, like Erica said, the big thing I would say, if you are a student with a disability, please let us know as soon as you possibly can, basically, in your application process. The sooner you let us know, the sooner we can factor that in, make arrangements, make sure we know what you need to make the experience as smooth as possible for you. So yeah, please do let us know, whatever it might be. Cool, so we're going to do one last question. There are still a few left in the chat. I will go through and attempt to reply to some of them. If you want to, if you've got, I can see there's a specific question for Jonathan about studying AMH, so if you want to ask that in the student room chat, Jonathan will be able to pick it up there for you. But yeah, thank you so much for all your questions. They've been fantastic. We're going to end on quickly from everybody. What is your top tip for people watching right now who are thinking about maybe applying? Maybe they're looking at other universities as well. Maybe they're not sure. Maybe they're dead set. What is your top tip for people on the open day today? Tamima, can I start with you?
I think this is like a piece of advice that my friend gave me, and I think it's really useful. If you're thinking of doing it and you're kind of on the fence, I think just go for it, because ultimately, if the thing that's worrying you is that you might not get in, I think just the application process itself, ultimately you will inevitably end up falling in love with your subject a bit, and that is so worth it, regardless of whether you get in or not, because it will set you up for the next 3 years, because it's just really nice to sort of get to know your subject really, really well in the way that you do sort of need to for interviews, and you sort of learn a lot more and you read a lot more and you get a much fuller understanding of all the things that you love and that drew you to the subject in the first place. So I think just bear that in mind sort of throughout the entire application process. Yes, it is difficult, but ultimately it should be enjoyable. And if it isn't, then maybe something's gone a bit wrong.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Jonathan, what about you? What's your top tip?
So for today, my top tip would be ask. If you have a question, don't be afraid to ask it. There are no stupid questions. And this is the perfect opportunity to find out what you need to know, whether you ask it as anonymous or you put your name, just ask whatever question you might have. And then for applications in general, just be yourself. Don't think that, oh, there's a particular stereotype or person that Oxford want. If you're weird, then be weird. If you just show that how you love your subject, and ultimately that's what's going to be looked for by the tutors.
Brilliant, thank you. Ellie, what about you?
Kind of similar to Mima. Honestly, if you're thinking about applying, go for it, because you are going to have a great time wherever you go. Like whether you get into college or not, it doesn't matter. If you get into a different college, it doesn't matter. As long as you're doing something that you think you enjoy, that is the most important part. And just, make the most of it. Have a go, apply. Even if you if it doesn't work out for you, you still have that opportunity. And it's such a valuable opportunity anyway, being able to do that, having the courage to go to the interview anyway and go through the whole process. So just go for it, and hopefully things work out. That's, you just got to be optimistic and power through.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. And finally, Erica, what's your top tip?
Again, it's kind of similar, but I'd say go read through your course that you're thinking about. If you're maybe stuck between 2 or maybe 3 courses, on the university website or the department website, there'll be a breakdown of the amount of choice you get and the kind of types of topics you'll study. I recommend reading that and just making sure that that is something that you can see yourself doing for 3 or 4 years, because it's a long time and you want to make sure that what you're doing is right for you and you're not. So I guess just don't rush into the decision, but also 100% go for it, but just make sure it's with a subject that you want to do for 4 years.
Yeah, brilliant, absolutely. I think you guys covered everything there. So thank you so much to our 4 ambassadors. We are going to have another one of these at the same time tomorrow if you want to come along and ask more questions. As I said, I'll try and get answers to people who haven't had their questions answered on Slido yet, and you can continue to ask these guys your questions on Slido in Ask the Students room until 4 o'clock today. If you would like to hear from tutors and hear a sort of tutor's perspective on studying at Oxford and admissions, etc., then please come along to that at 2 o'clock. Thank you so much, and thank you for your questions.